Have you ever replayed the same conversation 100 times, wondering if you said the wrong thing? Or laid awake at 2 a.m., creating problems that don't even exist yet? What if I told you that the greatest Roman emperor in history faced the same battle, not against enemies, but against his own mind? Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire under constant pressure, betrayal, war, and uncertainty. Yet he discovered one principle that allowed him to stay calm while the world around him was falling apart. By the end of this video, you'll learn that principle, and if you truly understand it, you'll never look at overthinking the same way again. Imagine this. It's late at night. Everyone else is asleep. But your mind isn't. It replays old mistakes. It imagines future disasters. It invents conversations that will probably never happen. Your body is in bed, but your mind is trapped somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow. The strange part is, you know it's hurting you. You know none of these thoughts are helping. Yet you can't stop. Most people believe overthinking means they're being careful. They think worrying prepares them. They think analyzing everything makes them smarter. But it doesn't. Overthinking doesn't solve problems. It multiplies them. Every minute you spend arguing with imaginary situations steals a minute from the life you're actually living. The greatest thief in history isn't another person. It's your own mind. And that's exactly what Marcus Aurelius understood nearly 2,000 years ago. Here's a question. If every thought in your head were spoken by another person, would you trust them? Imagine someone following you every day saying, "You're going to fail." They probably don't like you. What if everything goes wrong? You'll never be good enough. Eventually, you'd walk away from that person. So why do we believe those same words simply because they come from inside our own heads? Marcus Aurelius wrote something remarkable in his private journal. He reminded himself that the mind becomes colored by the quality of its thoughts. Think about that for a moment. Your life is not shaped only by your circumstances. It's shaped by the thoughts you repeatedly accept as truth. Every fearful thought you entertain paints another layer onto the way you see the world. Over time, the world itself begins to look dangerous. Not because it changed, but because your thinking did. Part 2. Why you overthink. The greatest misunderstanding about overthinking is that people believe it's a sign of intelligence. If you think more, if you analyze more, if you prepare for every possible outcome, then surely you'll make fewer mistakes. At least, that's what most people believe. But if that were true, the people who think the most would also be the happiest. Yet the opposite is often true. Some of the most intelligent people struggle with anxiety. They replay conversations for hours. They worry about things that haven't happened. They imagine futures that may never exist. So the question isn't, why do smart people overthink? The real question is, why was the human brain designed to overthink in the first place? The answer begins thousands of years before Rome, long before Marcus Aurelius, long before civilization itself. Imagine standing alone in a dark forest. You hear a sound behind you. You have two choices: ignore it or assume it's danger. If you ignored it, and it was a predator, you didn't survive. But if you assumed danger, and it was only the wind, you survived anyway. Generation after generation, human beings who expected danger lived longer. They passed those instincts to their children, and eventually, to you. Your brain was never designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. That's an important difference. Even today, your mind scans for threats every second. Except the threats have changed. Thousands of years ago, it was lions. Today, it's rejection, failure, embarrassment, a message left on seen, a job interview, a social media post. The brain doesn't know the difference. It reacts as though every uncomfortable situation is a matter of survival. That's why your heart races before speaking in public. That's why one negative comment can erase 10 compliments. That's why you replay conversations for days. Your brain believes it's protecting you. But here's the tragedy. The same mind that once protected human beings now traps millions of people inside invisible prisons. Not because they're weak, but because their ancient survival system is running inside a modern world. Then something happened. Modern life became louder. Every morning, before your feet even touch the floor, your brain is already under attack. Notifications, emails, breaking news, social media, other people's opinions, other people's success, other people's lives. Your ancestors spent most of their day observing nature. We spend hours absorbing information. The average person consumes more information in a single day than someone centuries ago might have encountered in weeks. And every piece of information asks your brain to make another decision. Should I care? Should I respond? Am I falling behind? Am I good enough? Should I change? Without realizing it, you become mentally exhausted before your day even begins. This is why so many people confuse mental activity with mental progress. They believe because they're constantly thinking, they're moving forward. But motion isn't always progress. Imagine sitting in a rocking chair. You can move all day, yet never leave the room. Overthinking works the same way. It creates the illusion of movement, while keeping you exactly where you are. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people still don't. A restless mind is rarely a productive one, because action creates clarity. Thinking alone rarely does. There's another reason we overthink, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with certainty. Human beings crave certainty. We want guarantees. We want to know the relationship will work. We want to know the business won't fail. We want to know people will accept us. We want to know tomorrow will be safe. But life has never offered guarantees. And every time reality refuses to give us certainty, the mind creates stories. What if they hate me? What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if I never succeed? Notice something. Almost every overthinking thought begins with, what if? Marcus Aurelius recognized this pattern long before modern psychology gave it a name. He understood that suffering usually begins, not with reality, but with imagination. We suffer more in the stories we create than in the events themselves. Think about how many times you've feared something, only to realize later it never happened. The argument never came. The rejection never arrived. The disaster never existed. Yet your body experienced every emotion, as if it were real. That is the hidden cost of overthinking. It forces you to suffer twice. Once in your imagination, and again if the event actually happens. Most of the time, only the first suffering exists. But if overthinking is natural, if your brain is wired for it, does that mean you're doomed to live this way forever? Marcus Aurelius would answer, absolutely not. Because while you cannot stop thoughts from appearing, you can decide whether they become your master. And that single realization changed the course of his life. Part 3. Marcus Aurelius's Stoic solution. Imagine waking up every morning, knowing that before the day ends, someone might betray you. A war could break out. Thousands of lives might depend on your decisions, and the fate of an empire would rest on your shoulders. That wasn't fiction. That was Marcus Aurelius's daily reality. He wasn't a philosopher sitting peacefully in a quiet library. He was the most powerful man in the world. And yet, his greatest battle wasn't against foreign armies. It was against his own mind. Every day, Marcus wrote private notes to himself, not because he planned to publish them, but because he knew something few people understand. The mind must be trained. If you don't guide your thoughts will guide you. Those personal notes eventually became one of history's greatest books, Meditations. And hidden within those pages is an idea so simple, yet so powerful, that it has survived for nearly 2,000 years. Marcus wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Read that again. Not quickly. Slowly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. This is the foundation of Stoicism, and it begins with one question. What is actually under my control? Take a moment. Can you control what people think about you? No. Can you control whether someone likes you? No. Can you control the economy? The weather? Your past? Other people's opinions? No. Yet most people spend almost all of their emotional energy trying to control exactly those things. And when reality refuses to obey them, they become anxious, frustrated, exhausted. Marcus Aurelius saw this trap long before psychology gave it a name. He realized that suffering grows whenever we confuse what belongs to us with what never did. Your reputation isn't fully yours. Other people's reactions are not yours. Yesterday is no longer yours. Tomorrow has never been yours. But this moment, this decision, this response, these are yours. And that's where your freedom begins. Imagine standing outside during a storm. You can scream at the rain. You can complain. You can wish the sky would change. But the storm doesn't listen. Now, imagine opening an umbrella. The rain is still there, but your experience changes completely. Stoicism isn't about controlling the weather. It's about carrying the umbrella. The world doesn't have to become easier for you to become stronger. Marcus Aurelius understood that peace isn't created by perfect circumstances. Peace is created by mastering your response. That single shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "How should I respond?" Instead of fearing criticism, you ask, "Did I act according to my values?" Instead of obsessing over outcomes, you focus on effort, because effort belongs to you. Outcomes do not. Think about your own life. Maybe someone ignored your message. Your mind immediately creates a story. They're upset with me. They don't respect me. I must have done something wrong. Hours pass, maybe days. Then you discover their phone died, or they were busy, or nothing was wrong at all. Notice what happened. Reality caused almost no pain. Your imagination created almost all of it. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself never to add unnecessary suffering to events. Life already contains enough challenges. Why manufacture more? Most people don't suffer because life is difficult. They suffer because they argue with reality. They replay it, rewrite it, resist it. But reality never changes because we worry. Only our peace disappears. Every morning, before Marcus began ruling an empire, he prepared his own mind. He reminded himself that difficult people would appear, that selfishness would exist, that criticism was inevitable, not because he was pessimistic, but because he preferred preparation over surprise. Imagine beginning your day expecting that someone might disappoint you. When it happens, you remain calm. Now imagine expecting everyone to be kind. Every rude comment suddenly feels like a personal attack. Expectation shapes emotion. Marcus chose realistic expectations, not perfect fantasies. That made him resilient. Here's the truth most people never hear. Your thoughts are like visitors. Some arrive with wisdom, others arrive with fear. Some tell the truth, others lie. Stoicism doesn't teach you to destroy your thoughts. It teaches you not to obey every visitor who knocks on your door. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it deserves a seat at your table. A fearful thought says, "You'll fail." A Stoic asks, "Where's the evidence?" An anxious thought whispers, "Everyone is judging you." A Stoic responds, "Can I actually know that?" This pause, this small space between thought and reaction, is where freedom lives. Most people react instantly. Marcus Aurelius practiced observing first, responding second, And that single habit gave him something no emperor could command: inner peace. But understanding this principle is only the beginning. Knowledge alone doesn't quiet the mind. Practice does. Marcus Aurelius didn't become calm because he read philosophy. He became calm because he lived it. Every single day. So the question becomes, how do you train your own mind the same way? How do you stop overthinking when anxiety appears, not just in theory, but in real life? In the next part. Part 4. 5. Stoic exercises to stop overthinking. Practical solution. Understanding Stoicism is one thing, but understanding alone doesn't change your mind. Practice does. So here are 5 Stoic exercises you can use when your thoughts begin running in circles. You don't need to do all 5 at once. Start with 1. Then practice it until your mind begins to remember. Not every thought deserves my attention. 1. The circle of control. When you're overthinking, ask yourself one question. Is this actually under my control? Divide the situation into 2 parts. What you can control: your actions, your effort, your words, your preparation, your response. And what you cannot control: other people's opinions, the past, the future, the outcome, what someone chooses to do. Now imagine you're waiting to hear back about a job. You can prepare for the interview. You can improve your skills. You can send the application. But once you've done your part, the final decision is no longer yours. Overthinking begins when you keep trying to control the second circle. So when your mind starts asking, "What if I don't get it?" replace the question with, "What can I do right now?" Then do that. If there's nothing you can do, let the thought go. Not because you don't care, but because worrying is not the same as taking responsibility. 2. Separate facts from stories. Your mind is an excellent storyteller. Someone looks at you strangely. Fact: they looked at you. Story: they don't like me. Someone doesn't reply. Fact: they haven't replied yet. Story: I said something wrong. You make one mistake. Fact: you made a mistake. Story: I'm a failure. Overthinking happens when we confuse the story with reality. The Stoic practice is simple. Write down the thought. Then ask, what do I actually know for certain? Everything else is an assumption. And assumptions should not have the power to destroy your peace. The next time your mind creates a disaster, pause. Find the fact. Separate it from the story. You may discover that the thing you're afraid of hasn't actually happened. It's only happening in your imagination. 3. Practice the worst. Then prepare for it. This may sound strange, but sometimes the fastest way to reduce fear is to look directly at it. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, briefly imagining possible difficulties, not to panic, but to prepare. Ask, what's the worst realistic outcome? Then ask, if it happened, what would I do? For example, what if I fail? Then, I learn. I adjust. I try again. What if they reject me? I'll be hurt, but I'll survive. The goal is not to imagine 100 disasters for hours. That is overthinking. The goal is to face the fear briefly, create a response, then return to the present. Because uncertainty becomes more frightening when you believe you couldn't handle it. This exercise reminds you, you may not control what happens, but you can prepare your character for it. 4. Get out of your head and into action. Overthinking lives in inactivity. Action interrupts it. You cannot think your way into certainty about everything. At some point, you have to move. If you're overthinking a decision, take the smallest useful step. Want to start a business? Research one idea today. Afraid to go to the gym? Put on your shoes. Overthinking a message? Write it honestly. Read it once. Send it. Then stop. Don't spend 3 hours trying to predict every possible reaction. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned his attention to the present action in front of him, not the entire future. just the next duty. So ask yourself, what is the next right action? Not the perfect action, not the guaranteed action, the next right action. Then do it. Clarity often comes after action, not before it. 5. The evening audit. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes. No phone, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I allow fear or overthinking to control me? What will I do differently tomorrow? Write the answers down. This matters because an unexamined day easily becomes an unexamined life. You don't need to judge yourself. You don't need to hate yourself for mistakes. Observe, learn, adjust. Then let the day end. Marcus Aurelius used writing as a way to examine and guide his own thinking. Your journal can become the same thing, a place where thoughts leave your head and become something you can look at clearly. And sometimes, the thought that feels overwhelming in your mind looks surprisingly small on paper. So remember the 5 exercises. Control what you can. Separate facts from stories. Face realistic fears and prepare. Take the next right action. Reflect, then release the day. You don't need to eliminate every negative thought. You don't need a perfectly silent mind. That's not the goal. The goal is something much more powerful. To stop giving every thought the authority to control your life. And now, there is one final lesson. Because even if you understand every Stoic principle, even if you practice every exercise, your mind will still produce fear sometimes. The difference is, you no longer have to follow it. And that is where real freedom begins. Part 5. The final lesson. Remember how this video began. You lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying a conversation, wondering if you said the wrong thing, imagining a future that hasn't happened, creating problems that don't even exist. Your body is in bed, but your mind is somewhere else. Maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you're experiencing it right now. And after everything we've discussed, there's something important you need to understand. You don't need to defeat your mind. You need to stop fighting every thought that enters it. Because thoughts are not commands. They are not predictions. They are not facts. They are simply thoughts. A thought can say, "You're going to fail." You don't have to believe it. A thought can say, "They don't respect you." You don't have to believe it. A thought can say, "Something terrible is going to happen." You don't have to believe it. You can simply observe it and let it pass. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He had every reason to worry. He lived through war. He faced political conflict. He experienced personal loss. He dealt with illness and uncertainty. He couldn't control the empire. He couldn't control other people's decisions. He couldn't control the future. And yet, repeatedly returned to the same place, his own mind. Not because he could control everything, but because he understood what actually belonged to him. His judgment, his actions, his character, his response. That's the Stoic secret. You don't become peaceful when you control everything. You become peaceful when you stop demanding control over what was never yours. The moment of change. So the next time your mind starts racing, don't immediately try to silence it. Stop, take a breath, and ask 3 questions. What am I actually afraid of? Is this within my control? What is the next right action? If it's within your control, act. If it's outside your control, release it. And if you don't know what to do yet, wait. You don't need to solve your entire life tonight. You only need to handle the moment you're actually living. Because that's where your life is happening. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Here. The final message. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be people who misunderstand you. There will always be things you cannot control. There will always be moments when your mind becomes loud again. That's not failure. That's being human. The goal isn't to become someone who never worries. The goal is to become someone who knows what to do when worry appears. You notice it. You question it. You separate fact from story. You return to what you can control. And then, you move forward. Again, and again, and again. Until one day, you realize something has changed. The situations that once controlled your emotions no longer have the same power. The criticism that once destroyed your confidence becomes background noise. The uncertainty that once kept you awake becomes something you can live with. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. Remember the question I asked at the beginning. What if Marcus Aurelius had discovered a principle that allowed him to remain calm while the world around him was falling apart? That principle wasn't a secret technique. It wasn't a magic morning routine. It wasn't about becoming emotionless. It was much simpler. Control what belongs to you, accept what doesn't, and never give your thoughts more authority than they deserve. That's how you begin to stop overthinking, not by controlling the future, but by returning to the present. Not by eliminating uncertainty, but by becoming capable of facing it. Not by making everyone understand you, but by understanding yourself. Tonight, if your mind starts creating another 1,000 scenarios, remember this. You don't have to solve tomorrow tonight. You don't have to rewrite yesterday. You don't have to predict what everyone thinks about you. You only have this moment. And this moment is enough. Take a breath. Let the thought come. Let it leave. Then return to your life. Because your life is happening while you're busy thinking about it. Don't spend it living inside imaginary futures or arguing with imaginary versions of the past. Come back to the present, to your actions, to your values, to yourself. Marcus Aurelius spent his life reminding himself of this, and perhaps that's why his words still matter nearly 2,000 years later. The world hasn't become less chaotic. Human beings haven't become less unpredictable. Life hasn't become more certain. But you can become more grounded, more disciplined, more difficult to disturb. And eventually, you may discover that the peace you were desperately searching for was never something you needed to find. It was something you needed to practice. If this video helped you see your thoughts differently, subscribe to Still Mind Society. Here, we don't just study Stoicism, we use it to become stronger in modern life. And remember, you don't control everything that happens to you, but you control what happens next. So stop fighting every thought. Stop predicting every disaster. Stop trying to control what was never yours. Take control of what is. Your mind, your actions, your character, and your next decision. That's where your freedom begins. Fade to black.